Oh, look at that. I've been having a good time here chatting with myself without the mic turned on. I just saw a notification turn to pop up. All right, let's start over again. Since nobody's really in the room yet, I don't feel too bad about kicking it off all over. Let me go ahead and start with our welcome as we always do. Uh, by saying that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. All right. While we're chatting here, I want to kind of update this other banner at least a little bit. All right. And also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at scnormal. SC Normal is our tag. And search us out on YouTube as subscribe and hit that uh, bell notification bell. Um, Reason I say that, I mean, I even use that for myself sometimes. I have an account here for Normal, as you can see that we're podcasting to YouTube, and I also have my personal account. And I'll go into my personal account and I'll hit that reminder, so I do get the notification um, when the podcasts are coming. All righty, good news. It looks like we've got Josh Griffin on the line. Welcome, Josh. Thank you for joining us tonight. Not sure about all the good news. I do have a little bit of good news, actually, I want to kind of mention before we kick off on the two little topics that I wanted to discuss tonight. Um, but let me kind of just sort of finish up with our welcome. Let me see, turn off this banner and kick up our last one. As always, I do ask that you visit our website, go to our sponsors page, and support our sponsors. They help us do what we do um, by helping support our efforts. All right. Bum, 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 bum. I'm going to pop up the intro and agenda banner, but before I really talk about the intro and agenda, I guess during the intro we'll call this. Um, I'm going to quick share my screen. The big news of the week, as far as I am concerned, is let me get the right tab. It's the only one I want to share. Boom. Minnesota becomes the 23rd state to legalize marijuana. And this is for legalize to regulate the adult use. This is not a medical program. 23rd state for a full adult use program. Um, I believe it was signed by their governor just a couple of days ago. I believe this posting you'll see here on normal.org was from yesterday. Great news, another state moving forward. You know, none of them have repealed their marijuana legalization yet. So it's growing, it's coming across the state, the nation. Um, I just hope they don't build a wall around South Carolina to keep the marijuana legalization out. Um, that would be kind of scary. But 23rd state to legalize adult use cannabis is Minnesota. Ah, back in my younger days, a buddy of mine and I, we talked about like, where would the safest place to live on in the U.S., especially in case of like, nuclear war and stuff like that. And we figured Minnesota, I think it's central on a continental plate. It's the land of 10,000 lakes, and I think 10,000 is a modest number. Um, but it's also cold. I kind of like it here in South Carolina as far as that goes. And thank goodness that, since my younger days till now, there has not been an all out, global nuclear uh, interaction. That would kind of suck. So, anyway, big news of the week, as far as I'm concerned. I do want to go backtrack to that other main page at Normal. I think it's the blog page, because there were a couple of other things that happened this week. Um, I shared this other story here on our Facebook this week. There's another study out that there's no correlation between THC detection and driving impairment. As you know, THC and cannabinoids store in the fatty tissues of the body, and so they can be stored there for significant periods of time. Um, and again, the first line, neither the detection of THC nor its metabolites, so the metabolized THC, subject's blood, breath, or oral fluid is correlated with psychomotor performance, according to a result of a state-funded study conducted by researchers in California. Uh, we already kind of knew that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I talk about a lot the banning or doing away with pre-employment cannabis testing. Um, it is because it has no meaning. It means nothing except for somebody used cannabis sometime, in the past maybe 30 days or 60 days, depending on the usage. Not that they're in, I mean, I, I advocate for impairment testing. Test if people are impaired. Um, if they can't function properly, can't do the job properly, can't think to do the job properly, um, then there's an issue. But just finding the substance of cannabinoids in their system is not. Oh, right here it is. Um, if you're seeing on my screen, detection of THC is not predictive of driving impairment or impairment in general, as I would say. So, another good story that came out this week on a study. Um, State funded in California, so it's not as some of the other ones. Like one of the ones I'll be talking about was actually in this Australian study, because having doing studies in the U.S. Um, excuse me, especially when cannabis is being supplied, that's controlled by the DEA and who can kind of do that. So uh, let me just kind of real quick scan down here. Those are the only ones really on that page I wanted to talk about. So let me turn off that share screen for the moment. Boop. All right. And the for, before we get to our first story, well, let me tell you during our intro and agenda, first story tonight is going to be about states that legalize marijuana, see reduced tobacco use. So that'll be our first story that I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit tonight. Second story I'm going to talk about is another one that is titled Marijuana is Associated with Significant and Sustained Health Improvements. I find two pretty interesting stories this week to kind of cover and talk about. Love to hear your input as we get into them. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and do a trivia question. Folks, I'm trying to do 3 of these a week, trying to give an opportunity for people that may want to sponsor our segment of our program. So we're going to start with our first trivia question tonight. It is a category of history. If you're keeping score, it is a 50-point question. I have no idea if that indicates the difficulty of the question, but 50-point question, the category history. The question is, in 1986, Carlton Turner, President Reagan's drug advisor, suggested that marijuana could make you dumb, sterile, gay, or crazy. Those are the 4 options. In 1986, President Reagan's drug advisor, Carlton Turner, suggested that marijuana could make you dumb, sterile, gay, or crazy. All righty. Give you folks a second to kind of think about it, talk about it amongst yourselves. Pop an answer in the comment section if you have an answer, while I go ahead and just elaborate slightly on the fact that I'm trying to create a little segment here that where sponsors might get their business mentioned for a small fee each time they want to sponsor a segment on our trivia quiz. All right. Right back to it. We're going to get to an answer. Let me just kind of take a look in the comment section yet, see if we have anybody answering our question. I don't see it yet. One more time, the category is history. It's a 50-point question. Question is, in 1986, Carlton Turner, who was President Reagan's drug advisor, suggested marijuana could make you dumb, sterile, gay, or crazy. The answer, according to this little card, is gay. Although I've heard cannabis supposedly had to be accused of doing all those things, um, Carlton Turner said gay, at least according to this card. All righty. I just don't know about that. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get to our first subject tonight. That was a very poor impression, probably in poor taste. So I apologize. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, find the story here. Um, Reduced cannabis use or reduced tobacco use in states that have legalized cannabis. And I believe that is adult use cannabis, not medical. So this story came out May 15th. Again, that's in Marijuana Moment. States that legalize marijuana see reduced tobacco use. The study finds. I was talking about the difference, a little bit about DEA studies and where studies are, how they're controlled. This one, if I recall, was, oh, now let me find it. I must be thinking of a different story. Oh, okay, that's the other story. Um, I thought this one was done in California. But okay, let me go ahead and I'll just read the top line so we kind of get an idea of this one here. The reason I like the tobacco stories is because I quit using tobacco, using cannabis myself many years back. Um, and so I find these interesting, intriguing. We'll start it off with, while some experts, health experts, have expressed concern that the legalization of marijuana could fuel a rise in the use of tobacco products, a new study instead concludes that the state level cannabis reforms are mostly associated with small, occasionally significant longer run declines in adult tobacco use. So they're actually seeing a reduce in adult tobacco use versus an increase that they had predicted. Researchers find that consistent evidence that the adoption of state recreational marijuana laws, RMLs, um, led to a slight uptick in cannabis use among adults of between about 2 and 4 percent points, depending on the data source. But tobacco didn't follow the trend. Now, mind you, these are states that are now illegalized for recreational use. People aren't afraid to consume, and so there's a slight uptick of 2 to 4% of possibly new users or new users reporting. Um, doesn't seem like a big uptick on a state that's just legalized. But anyway, uh, if the apparent substitution effect from cigarettes to marijuana that's being driven by legalization were extended nationally, it could result in healthcare cost savings worth more than $10 billion per year, the study concluded. Um, and this kind of connects to the other story that I want to talk about a little bit later. Eh, we've got cannabis, a Schedule One federally, scheduled prohibited substance, claimed to have absolutely no medical benefits um, whatsoever, which has been disproved over and over and over again. But not only that, the fact that people would choose maybe cannabis over tobacco, in some cases, can lead to billions of dollars of savings to the healthcare system. Uh, Anyway, we find little empirical support for the hypothesis that RMLs, recreational marijuana laws, increase the net consumption of tobacco, as measured across a wide range of combustible tobacco products, as well as e-cigarettes, they wrote. Rather, the preponderance of evidence points to small, occasionally significant, longer run declines in adult cannabis tobacco use. uh, Sorry, I giggle because I catch some of the comments before I share them. South Carolina is all about the pills and the tobacco and the alcohol. Um, but yeah, it's definitely the pills, the tobacco, and I guess not Bud Light right now. What kind of beers is acceptable? Um, oh, I got that banner on there. I don't want on anymore. And we did that. Cool. All right. Um, that's where I was looking at, San Diego. So, anyways, little empirical data. Rather, the preponderance is that there's more declines in tobacco use. um, and now, mind you, when I chose to use cannabis to try and quit tobacco use, I sort of remember that when I would smoke cannabis, I'd want to have a cigarette. And what sort of happened was initially, I'd want to have a cigarette, so I'd go to where I didn't smoke, throughout the house. So I would instead go and smoke a couple of bongs. And then I would kind of get that urge for now a cigarette because now I've just done it, smoked a little cannabis. So all I could really do at that point was smoke a little more cannabis until the point where I didn't really want to smoke any more cannabis and I didn't want a cigarette anymore. And it actually worked out pretty well. Um, I mean, lucky for me, I had that ability where I was working from home at the time. It wasn't like some folks that have to, go out, leave their homes for work. They're cigarette smokers. Maybe they're allowed to step outside the door of their work building and have a cigarette at their lunchtime or their break time or something like that. Or heck, I guess if you're in construction, you probably, yeah, I guess depending on the construction company or the type of construction, you could probably get away with smoking pretty much any time you're able to, uh, you know. Um, but uh, in those situations, it wouldn't be as easy to substitute cannabis because their bosses might frown upon it. Well, they don't mind you having a cigarette, but they don't want you having a couple of puffs to do away with your cigarette urge. Um, Sad but true. All right. So anyway, the authors at Bentley, Chicago, or San Diego State, and Georgia State Universities published the findings in the Journal of Health Economics last month, calling the report the first to comprehensively examine the impact of recreational marijuana legalization on tobacco use. So they're calling this the first comprehensive exam. I'm assuming there's planning more and others. The study draws on federal data from population assessment of tobacco and health and the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. So again, these are studies that are done pulling data from other reports. And then I guess comparing the data and things of that nature. Let me just kind of read this one real quick here. At the time of surging public support for cannabis legalization, the researchers write, public health experts have taken a more cautious approach, urging more research to assess the health benefits and costs of marijuana use, as well as to understand potentially unintended consequences on other health behaviors. And that's kind of a valid point. I mean, I really can't argue that sometimes. Cannabis tends to give people the munchies. They might tend to eat without thinking about the health benefits of their diet, things like that. Gain a little extra pounds, which I don't think you can see on camera. I'm patting my many extra pounds on my belly. So yeah, there are other consequences, I would assume, unintended consequences to other health behaviors. Some have raised concerns that reform could lead to the renormalization of smoking, potentially reversing nearly half a century of declining cigarette use. And now that's kind of an interesting comment, especially on, oh, let me go back to this other see if I can share it with you or not. No, it is not sharing because I didn't do it. It relates to another study that was recently done uh, on just that subject. That and I've shared it on our social media. I'm pretty sure um, that the smoking of cannabis does not have the same effect on the lungs as smoking of tobacco products does. Um, And no, I'm not seeing that on top here where I'm looking for it. But there have been those studies where they just do not have the same effect. I don't know about y'all, but I mean, remember smoking cigarettes, you kind of smoke, inhale deeply, exhale, smoke, smoke, smoke. Where with me with cannabis, it's one or two puffs, and that's about it. It's not like I'm smoking a whole joint or something, though. Some people may smoke more like a cigarette smoker, their cannabis more so than I do. Um, but even still, like I said, I believe there's been studies that say that does not affect the lungs the same. Cigarette smoking rates have fallen dramatically since the first Surgeon General report in 1964. All right, so I was still pretty young then. I was not a smoker in 1964. Um, not for a few years after that, actually. With rates dropping among males, dropping by 55% to 16%, and female smoking rates from 35% to 12%. No, I didn't even quite realize that some of the smoking numbers were quite that low, 16% for men, 12% of the population for women. While the cause of these declines is a matter of much debate, the study acknowledges that public health experts seek to preserve those health gains. So, um, you know, and if people are concerned about the smoking aspect of cannabis, just remember that there's other ways to ingest cannabis. Some people prefer edibles. Some people prefer whole flower vaping. Um, some people prefer tinctures, and some people prefer concentrates. So consumption methods vary, and we're planning actually a little bit of a series on that coming up in the not too long. Is talking a little bit about consumption methods, dosing possibility, potentials, and things like that. Um, so I don't want to kind of, as I normally don't want to read through the thing word for word, paragraph for paragraph, um, but it just does show that these predictions that we often get by the opposition are often disproven after the fact of legalization. Um, just like this one, they say, "Oh, it's going to increase tobacco use." Well, it didn't. It actually decreased tobacco use. Um, it increased cannabis use a little bit, but um, there is one other here because we were talking about vaping as I sort of mentioned, delivery system. Legalization is also associated with a lagged reduction in electronic nicotine delivery system use, consistent with the hypothesis that um, those systems and marijuana are substitutes. Um, so some people substitute one for the other. Da, 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 da. All right, I'm not going to kind of read all this out because I do want to continue with our podcast, and I see we're coming up on the 10:30 window. Before I kind of end on this subject, I'm just going to throw it out to our viewers, participants. If anybody has any comments or questions on that or statements, throw them at me. We'll see if we can share them a little bit. While you do that, I'm going to dig into my little magic box here and find another question for tonight. I'm gonna, like I say, try and do three of our trivia questions. And we're coming up on question number two. All right, let me go ahead and I'm looking at the screen that I'm sharing with you, and it's showing some of the ads of dumb stuff that I've been looking at. I don't know if you can see this, but there's these Yard gnome knights. They're like hilarious. I thought they were so funny. I haven't picked one up yet, or any of them up yet, but I think there's a series of different knights in armor that you can put around your garden. Uh, and I found them quite amusing. All right. Let me get a quick sip here. We'll get into our trivia question number two before we get into our next subject matter of the night. Ah, okay. And I see we do have a couple people with us this evening. I love it. I love it. I always appreciate when you folks join me. Um, question number two on our trivia tonight is a knowledge category. Again, if you're keeping points, it's a 30-pointer. Knowledge category, 30 points. The question is, what temperature range should your urine be to pass a drug test? What temperature range should your urine be to pass a drug test? Would that be 96 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, 94 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or 90 to 94 degrees Fahrenheit? Hmm, what should it be? Again, second trivia question of the night. Opportunity if your organization or company would like to sponsor a segment of our program. So again, this is the knowledge-based category. It's 30-point question. See if we have any comments in here. We got DJ Gamecock joined in and is saying hello to Josh. Howdy, howdy, DJ Gamecock. Thanks for joining. Knowledge question, 30 point. No answers in the comment question, so you can play along at home. What temperature range should your urine be to pass a drug test? Would it be 96 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, 94 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or 90 to 94 degrees Fahrenheit? And according to the trivia cards, the answer is 94 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit is what your urine temperature should be. I would assume that would be the same for your synthetic pee. um, as well. All righty, cool. That was our second trivia question of the night. Let's go into our second topic of the night. Oh, before I get into the second topic, let me go ahead and share the link to that first topic. I forgot all about that. This is that tobacco use. All right, get rid of that one for the moment. And the second one I wanted to talk about tonight. There we go. I'll give you this whole headline in the comment window with the link. Is marijuana is associated with significant and sustained health improvements. And I like this one because in the title, they have it in quotes, significant and sustained. So let me go ahead and share that tab with you here. Just one second. Again, this is an article from Marijuana Moment. This was posted 2 weeks ago, May 16th. I thought it kind of tied into the first subject of the reduced tobacco use because it's also, talking about health improvements, overall health improvements. This one is based on medical marijuana. So let me kind of scroll down on this just a little bit. This one is a study, I believe, out of Australia. And it is the use of medical cannabis is associated with significant improvements of quality of life for people with conditions like chronic pain and insomnia. And those effects are quote, largely sustained, unquote, over time, according to a new study published by the American Medical Association, the AMA. Researchers carried out, excuse me, researchers carried out a retrospective case series analysis that involved 3,148 people in Australia who were prescribed medical cannabis for treatment to sustain of certain eligible conditions. Again, those chronic pain and insomnia and conditions. For all 8 well-being indicators that were tested, marijuana appeared to help with adverse side effects that were, quote, rarely serious, according to the study published last week in the Journal of American Medicine, which is JAMA, J-A-M-A, Health Policy. Patients were asked to rate their wellness on 8 categories on a scale of 1 to 100 at different stages of treatment. Those categories were general health, bodily pain, physical functioning, physical role limitations, mental health, emotional role limitations, social functioning, and vitality. So those were the things that people were asked to rate on a scale of 1 to 100 over a series of time during their treatment with medical cannabis. Let's see here. After administering the survey to the patients about once every 45 days, about once every 6 weeks or so, for a total of 15 follow-ups. That's a pretty good span of time. The study found that participants that were consuming cannabis reported average improvements of 6.6 to 18.3 points on that 1 to 100 scale. So they're at least showing some movement. Some of them, darn near 20 points, 20% improvement on that scale. Actually, it could have been more than 20%, depending on what their starting number was. Again, depending on the category that they were talking about. So, I still got to wonder why our South Carolina legislators are just so determined to refuse to allow patients in South Carolina to have some relief. The most common conditions for which marijuana was prescribed were non-cancer chronic pain, which was 68.6%, cancer-related pain, which is 6%, and insomnia, which is 4.8%, and anxiety at 4.2%. This was in this Australian group. Again, here we are, South Carolina, not real concerned about the well-being of our citizens. Drives me a little crazy. Anyway, the use of cannabis as a medicine is becoming increasingly prevalent, the study says. Given the diverse range of conditions being treated with medical cannabis, as well as the vast array of products and dose forms available, clinical evidence incorporating patient-reported outcomes may help determine safety and efficacy. So they're justifying their study by trying to report on people's results. And of course, the dosage methods of consumptions and cannabinoid profiles of marijuana products that patients used varied significantly. Now, I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with some folks at USMC. I'm sorry, MUSC. I'm getting a lot of confused about some studies that they're doing there, and hopefully we're going to get them on the program in the next couple of weeks. But we were talking to them about, are they tracking things like the cannabis profiles, as they're putting them here, the cannabinoid profiles, or like the strain profiles that people are using? That could be, to me, very significant, especially since the study with the folks at MUSC is a study with, I want to say, for people with an intent to want to try and reduce their cannabis usage, because it is a cannabis reduction, not saying quitting, but it's talking about reduction and usage and stuff like that. And when we were talking about that, you have to sometimes consider, especially for folks that may, talk about, oh, well, I want to reduce my cannabis consumption because maybe one of the reasons is they don't like the feeling of being, you know, high at certain times or whatever it might be. And there it's like, well, do they really need to or want to reduce their consumption? Or is it more that they need to switch the strain and the cannabinoid profile and the terpene profile of the cannabinoids that they're consuming so that it's not something that is affecting them so much, psychologically, that is giving them still the health benefits, but not the high. So um, there is that. Um, and that's one of the things which I thought was rather interesting that they actually brought up in this particular study is they do indicate that people are using a variety of different uh, substances and ingestion methods and dosing methods. The study suggests a favorable association between medical cannabis treatment and the quality of life among patients with a diverse range of conditions. It concludes, however, clinical evidence for cannabinoid efficacy remains limited and further high quality trials are required. So, and yet we're seeing that a lot more in some of these, especially as they're saying in that other study, the first ever study on the association between legalization and tobacco. Um, there isn't always enough research that's been done, and that more studies need to be done. But they don't need to keep it illegal in South Carolina to do these kind of studies. As a matter of fact, you need to legalize it to do some of these type of studies and realize the benefits of legalization in those particular areas because that's what they're doing. They're basically confirming the benefit in some aspect of that community of legalization, whether it's reduced tobacco use, whether it's people that are qualified having improved cognition and reduced pain um, over the other options. So uh, I'm just going to kind of throw that out there a little bit. What is this link here? Oh, that might have been the rest of a link or something. It is. What's that too? All right. I'm going to bring this up while it's kind of down here as a question, or not a question, a comment. Question, comment. DJ Gamecock asks, can you mention the date for the One Way Forward Music Festival that's coming up, which is Saturday, June 24th, from 3 to 11? Okay, I thought I saw it from 11 till 11 or something like that. Because I just ordered my ticket yesterday for the One Way Forward Music Festival. That is going to be, oh, let me go find it now. There we go. It's at the Refinery in Charleston. One Way Music Festival. I'm going to share with you here the what looks like the Facebook event. Within that Facebook event, there should be a link to get your tickets. Okay, gates open 11. Okay, now I see. 3 p.m. to 11, I guess is when the music is. All righty. So, yep, wanted to mention that. Let me kind of get back to the story real quick. Where are we at? We're rolling up on quarter of, and I'm kind of running out of steam tonight. Um, The American Medical Association also published research late last year that connected state cannabis legalization with reduced opioid prescribing for certain cancer patients. Numerous studies have linked cannabis legalization and self-reported marijuana use to reduced opioid prescribing and overall overdose deaths. Um, that one, to me, again, it kind of hits home. Not that I'm as ever an opioid user that recovered with cannabis. Mine was, again, tobacco and alcohol for the most part. But I've had a number of people come up and tell me that they were the number that sticks to the top of my head, 10 or 12 years, were a couple of people that have told me they were, opioid users, addicts for long periods of time, a decade or more, um, and they used cannabis and self-prescribed cannabis to help them get themselves off of the opioids. Again, what does the South Carolina legislature do? It wants to pass opioid legislation that criminalizes, the people that are selling it more so, except for the doctors and the pharmaceuticals companies and their distributors and such like that. They want to impose greater criminal penalties and criminalization on people dealing in fentanyl and things like that, instead of legalizing cannabis and saying, look, here's something that's been shown to at least reduce those numbers to a certain extent where nothing else seems to be helping. Let's get with the program here. 23 states have now legalized for adult choice use. Um, to me, that's no different than having legal alcohol available in your state. Actually, I think it's better for your state because I'd like to see some of these studies on um, how legalization of cannabis has affected alcohol sales and alcohol overdosing in emergency rooms and things like that. I have no idea if there's been any studies on this or any data collected on that, but I would kind of bet that those numbers have dropped as well in states that have legalized for recreational use. Mm. If you happen to know of any studies or anything, drop them in the comments for me. Let me go ahead. I think that was actually the last line in that particular story about the reduced opioid. Oh, okay. There was state level legalization also associated with no notable reductions in prescribing of specific opioid codeine. So, but yes, it helps reduce those what opioid usage. Um, why are we not? Did I just lose that? Why are we not doing that here in South Carolina? Why are we not giving people options? Uh, I don't know. I've lived in Charleston about 7 years. I think it was 7 years ago this week that I moved to Charleston as a permanent resident. And in that time, I've not personally seen, but I have known of and seen a number of opioid deaths in the. My wife and I like to go out and eat and dine out. And we say we're not big drinkers, but we do like to go out and we like to eat. And there's been a number of servers, bartenders, wait staff, a lot of food and beverage staff that we've heard of that have overdosed from fentanyl poisoning. And I believe in most cases it is it was situations where they thought it was something else. They thought they were getting some cocaine or something else, but that these things were tainted with fentanyl. Um, and I've even heard now. I usually kind of laugh at the police saying marijuana is going to be tainted, and they're finding tainted marijuana tainted with fentanyl, and I kind of thought it was a joke until I think it was one of the last cannabis rallies up at the state house that we did. That one of the other participants came up and told me that they had actually experienced um, some did fentanyl tainted cannabis. And that scares the crap out of me. I mean, again, that's all the more reason to have legalization, regulation, certificates of analysis so that we can know what's in the product, so we know it's not tainted with fentanyl, that it's not, that's been tested for molds and mildews and pesticides and unhealthy fertilizers and things like that. Not stuff that you want to be consuming. It needs to be regulated by the agriculture department for the most part, like our other foods are. Um, anyway, let's see here. So that's kind of all I had for you tonight. Let me kind of take a peek at the time. Oh, it's only like not even 10 of. I do have one more trivia question I'm going to finish up with, and then I'm going to kind of get on to our. I did mention the upcoming music festival, but also we have a couple of other things that we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks. I guess is the best way to look at it. So let me go ahead first. Let me look at my agenda sheet here, make sure I'm plugging this in at the right spot. There we go. We're going to do one last trivia question, and then we'll get to our uh, kind of final comments and updates as we go. So this is the category unjust bust. Unjust bust is the category. It's a 30-point question. What actor starred in the movie Dazed and Confused and was busted for marijuana possession while playing the bongos naked? Was it Matthew McConaughey, Ben Affleck, or Jason London? Unjust bust, 30-point question. Which actor starred in the movie Dazed and Confused and was busted for marijuana possession while playing the bongos naked? Was that Matthew McConaughey, Ben Affleck, or Jason London? I don't think I ever saw the movie Dazed and Confused. I'm missing out, apparently. All right. Sponsorship, blah, blah, blah. And as you chant, blah, blah, blah. Uh, don't forget, you have an opportunity to sponsor our trivia segments. Let's get back to it. The answer tonight for the category of unjust bust is 30-point question. Which actor starred in the movie Dazed and Confused? Yes, they are tougher questions tonight. This one, like I say, I didn't know. Um, what who started in Dazed and Confused was busted for marijuana possession while playing the bongos naked. For some reason, I kind of think I heard this one. Matthew McConaughey busted for marijuana possession while playing the bongos naked. No other information on that arrest at this time. Don't know if he was home alone playing the bongos naked or out in public. Couldn't tell you. I mean, I generally don't play the bongos in public to begin with, let alone doing it naked. But yeah, DJ Gamecock said tough questions today. They were kind of tough one in there. And I said, I'm still on the small box here, where when eventually we'll get to the big box too. A lot of questions in there, and some of them are a little dated. One of them I read off, I think, a week or two ago about Timothy Leary. I believe was a bit inaccurate. It talked about him being arrested in the 70s, and I believe it was 1968 that he got arrested, and or maybe even 67, somewhere in there. So I don't know if I'm wrong or the cards are wrong. But anyway, they are tougher questions tonight. Let me go ahead and click on one of these little buttons over here. Oh, I think this is the one I'm looking for. There we go. Looking for a little upcoming events button. And we do have a couple of upcoming events. Again, don't forget to visit our website, scnormal.org, and visit our events page, coming events page. We should have most stuff posted out there. Uh, you can sometimes find some of the same things posted on our events page for our Facebook page. So check those out. We believe we should have like this Friday, 2 days from today, weather permitting. Actually, it's a rain or shine event. Is the Reggae Festival on James Island at James Island County Park, which I believe they open the gates at 7:30 or so, 7 or 7:30. Music to begin about 8 till I think 11 or so at night. We are not, South Carolina NORML is not a sponsor, is not a vendor. We're just going to hang out, chill out, have some fun, wear our cannabis pride, probably pop up a couple of our little cannabis pride signs, have a whole handful of brochures with us, and hopefully get some local folks in the community to start talking with us about marijuana, um, and the need for marijuana law reform and how to vote responsibly if you're looking for marijuana law reform. Um, so that's all it is. We're going out to hang out. I'm kind of find some wood to knock. I'm knocking on wood that I'm not shooting myself in the foot for doing this because I work at James Island County Park now, and I've actually requested the evening off so that I could attend this event. And I'm pretty sure some of my coworkers are going to see me there. Um, so I don't think there's going to be any ripples or feedback. I'm not trying to push the boundaries too much. I'm just going out to enjoy the show, but I am going to be wearing my cannabis pride, and hopefully talking with some of the local folks about cannabis. Uh, DJ Gamecock mentions that he got to meet Timothy there. He came to USC as a guest speaker. His speaking topic, living in space. Yeah, he's gotten into some other stuff. I think he's kind of become a little bit of a different mindset, maybe, since those days in the 60s and 70s. Or I don't know. He seems to be at least less outspoken. Um, hmm. Interesting kind of review there. Before his speech, he asked if anyone wanted to live in space to raise their hand. Very few did. After his speech, he asked the same question, and almost everybody raised their hand. Hmm. I don't know. Sounds entertaining. I mean, I always found him a very interesting person. Um, the person that ended the 1937 Marijuana Stamp Act in the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional, and unfortunately, kind of the initiator of the Controlled Substances Act as a way to fill that gap when that legislation was shown to be unconstitutional. They created some new unconstitutional legislation. Um, so anyway, this coming Friday, just hanging out. No, no fee that we are charging. Now, mind you, there is a fee from the county park system. I believe it's $10 per person. Or if you are a county park gold pass member, everybody in your car gets in by just showing your pass as you drive through. You let them scan it, of course. So good example. If there's four people in your car, you all get in with your gold pass. That's a savings of $40. Makes it kind of worth it to get a gold pass, especially since there's four of these reggae nights throughout the season, two in June, one in July, one in August. If you save $40 each one of those, you've more than paid for your gold pass, and the gold pass lets you into all of the county parks. Maybe not all of the events, but some of the events. So that's a good value if you happen to live in the Charleston area. Definitely check that out. We do plan on being there again, like I said, this Friday. We'll be there, and also I think there's one on the 23rd, the day before the One Way Forward event that DJ's talked about here. Um, so keep that in mind. We have another one coming up in June, one in July, one in August. Also, we are planning in July a beach sweep and day at the beach and at Folly Beach. I'm working on our partnership. I believe the beach sweep representative also represents South Carolina Aquarium and the Turtle Watch program there. I believe she is the person inside of Toby the Turtle, um, which is a turtle protection mascot. So we're planning on having her on. Uh, I'll call her Toby the Turtle for the moment. We plan on having her on just before our beach sweep event. Let me get my calendar in front of me. So we're gonna planning on having her on, and beach sweep is July 23rd. I think we've got that cleared for July 5th. She should be here visiting with us to talk about really her focus. A lot of this is on the data collection of the I'm sorry, data collection of the trash that's picked up on the beach. Um, they actually compile that data with each one of the beach cleanups that they do. I believe they also work with another beach cleanup group that Folly Beach organizes, and again collecting this data. And this data can then be used, as they say, as she was telling me, they've used it to help with the straw ban, with the plastic, one-time use bag ban, and trying to get legislation passed by keeping this data and finding, educating our legislators on how the general public doesn't necessarily care for the beach as well as they should in some respects. And also, and she made made sure I was aware of this. Not all of the trash that's picked up on the beach was actually dropped on the beach. Some of it could be washing in from shore, from offshore. Could have been dumped someplace else. Could have been washed in someplace else in the storm and then washed back to Folly at a later date. So um, keep those kind of things in mind. Like I said, that is planned for July 5th. It's about a month out till that podcast, but trying to get a couple other things. I posted this week about a hemp block building home that was built here in Charleston on James Island. Um, Unfortunately, I missed an opportunity to go see it a few days ago. Weather was bad and timing wasn't right. But I've been in contact with the builder, and we're hoping to have them come onto the program, whether it's through a series of segments or whether it is through a live visit from them. We haven't decided yet. I'm trying to work out some of the details on that and talk about the growing hemp building or hemp in the building industry and how they feel it's going here in South Carolina. So that should be kind of an interesting podcast when we get them on in here for that one. That should be coming up hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Um, I'm going to go back to my calendar for today. As you know, we usually do our second Wednesday for our monthly meeting, so that will be on the 14th of June. Uh, and next week, I don't know what we're talking about yet. Keep in mind, it might be the hemp builder. Uh, I'm hoping I can pull it together that quickly. Um, that is, I think, all for really for our upcoming events right now. As far as our local Charleston area, and we'd love to see if there's any folks out in the community that can help us organize maybe something in other portions of the state where they can represent us and hand out some brochures. I did just get a text message on the side here. Um, DJ Gamecock, I've got a quick question from you from a viewer. How can they get a vendor space at the One Way Forward event? Should they contact Carolina Dream? Um, yep. Okay. Okay. Got you in the comments. All righty. I will direct them to contact the folks at Carolina Dream on getting a vendor spot there. All righty. I see we're already past 8 o'clock here, and I guess we're done for the night. As always, I'm going to end it by asking you to don't forget, or end it by asking you to, keep up with us on our social media. As always, I mentioned we tend to post more to Facebook than we do to our Twitter or our Instagram, but we do try to keep those accounts active as well. But especially, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that you're aware of when we have our podcast coming up. I'm trying to get better at doing a pre-announcement a couple of days in advance with a subject line of hopefully what we're going to cover and not be flying so much by the seat of my pants on these. Hopefully, I'll make them a little bit more interesting. And if nothing else, I think on YouTube, having subject matter in the titles will probably make some of the topics a little more searchable and hopefully um, get more viewership that way. That's all I got for tonight. I will be back again next Wednesday, as always, at 7 p.m. Come out and see me, though, on Friday at the reggae night. But next Wednesday, 7 p.m., right back here. Thank you for joining me. We're out. Have a good night.